everybody, and welcome to Franchise Vibes. So, today the vibes we on is we're outside vibes. So, we're going to be buzzing into business vibes with Mosquito Squad. I'm so happy that our guest today is Jason Henshaw. Jason is the franchise development manager for Mosquito Squad. So, Jason, please tell us a little bit about yourself before you go into Mosquito Squad. How did you get to that point? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so the franchise story that everyone has, right? You have one, I have one, everybody in franchising has one. We didn't just wake up one day and go, I want to be in franchising, right? You kind of fall into it. There's no school or studying for it. It's just kind of something that you stumble upon at some point in your life. And if you're like me, once you do, you get bitten by the bug, so to speak, and you never look back. And that's my story. I got into franchising 15 years ago. Had my own business, sold that business and bought into a franchise opportunity that a friend of mine was starting. And it was a fledgling franchise, emerging brand. I was franchise number six. And they brought me on into the corporate team because they were sending people to me for validation, meaning to go and talk to owners and see what it's like to be in the system. And they were winding up going back to headquarters and signing the agreements, right? So that whatever I was saying was very helpful in helping them make their decision. And so
Yeah.
they're like, you're kind of really good at this, naturally. Let's have you come on board. So long story short, we went from six locations to 150. And then we got bought out by private equity. I moved on with that sale. And I've since been with multiple brands along the way, ultimately landing at Authority Brands 2 years ago, where I represent Mosquito Squad and one other brand. And Authority Brands, if you're not familiar with them, they're one of the largest conglomerate of home service brands in the United States, and Mosquito Squad just happens to be one of those brands. So yeah, that's my story. That's how I got here. I give you kind of the shorter bridge version. But again, I think everybody that's in franchising, no matter what side they're in, can usually loves the business because I think personally, and I think you might feel the same way, Tamika, is that it's the greatest invention for small business creation ever made in the history of the planet. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
Awesome. So, for those who are unfamiliar, what is Mosquito Squad and what makes it stand out in the pest control industry?
A great question. So it's a little bit of a misnomer that we're called Mosquito Squad because we invented the model 20 years ago, and when we invented the model, there was no one else selling mosquito businesses in the franchise space. We were the only one, and so we we kind of did that for a while. But you got to adapt and evolve, right? They say adapt or die. You have to move with the changes and come up with new ways to keep your business relevant. And so
Mhm.
today, currently, we're full service pest control. Hence, adding the plus on the bottom as of last year to kind of notate that we're more than just mosquitoes. So we handle all pests, both inside and outside the home, even in the lawn, right? Pest destroy plant material.
Yeah.
We also do rodents, so mice and rats and things like that. This is important because there's maybe other brands out there that do mosquito service, but they're not full service, meaning they're beholden to the seasonality of the mosquito, right? Mosquitoes go away in the wintertime for most parts of the country. So
Mhm.
with these additional lines of revenue, enable us to be in business basically year round, even in the most northern climates. Because guess where rats and mice and other insects go when it's cold out, right? In your
Yeah.
house, right? So obviously you don't want that, and so we assist homeowners and communities with that as well.
So, I've seen this because, as you guys know, well, obviously, Mosquito Squad is in my inventory along with all the other Authority brands, etc. And there's times where you might see on my franchise fit form, pest control or pest, and it doesn't really strike you to pick that.
Right.
So, I mean, it may not be the first thing that people think of when considering franchising. So, what makes this an exciting, profitable industry for potential franchise owners?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is that this is a necessary service. They've done studies and polls and surveys to people about services that they have for their home, and it turns out that people are more likely to cancel cable than pest control, right? Pest control they consider like a necessary service that they must have, particularly if they're in places where mosquitoes, for instance, are a really big nuisance and they have kids or pets. Those things, believe it or not, the mosquito is the largest vector of disease on the face of the earth. Nothing spreads disease faster and more efficiently than the mosquito. So things like West Nile, the aquarian virus, the equestrian virus is going around now. So people want to be able to enjoy their outdoor spaces without having to deal with those types of things, particularly in the Northeast. I live in South Florida. We're basically a 12-month market. There's no time of the year that I cannot go outdoors, right? But the further north you go, that season, the amount of time that you can spend outdoors is starts to go down. And so what happens is these folks that live in the more northern climates, they have cabin fever. They can't wait till the spring to come around, summer to come around. They can go out and enjoy their outdoor spaces. And the last thing they want is something that's going to prevent them from doing that, right? And that's pests. So it's a low cost business, low entry for franchise candidates to get into.
Mhm.
The profitability is really high, and we can get into kind of the performance of the business. I think that's important to look at, especially compared to other pest control businesses. We have some really strong data. Our brand president always says, like, when we have like our meet your team days or president calls with candidates, is we don't make decisions based on vibe or gut or feeling, based on data. And so we have a lot of data. We're kind of a data company that does pest control. And so we track all that stuff to kind of make sure that all of our locations are performing at the highest level.
Awesome. And you touched on authority brands, and I'm glad that you did because I have a few brands that are in my inventory that I do like to show that are a part of bigger brands. And one of the key reasons that I like that as well is because of some of the cross marketing
Right.
opportunity and support that can happen there. So, can you tell us more about how does being backed by a larger franchise network benefit the franchisees?
Yeah, for exactly what you described, right? Because it gives us cross marketing potential. So people that enjoy outdoor spaces, right, and want to eliminate pest issues, they might also like our tree brand, right? Because they want to take care of their trees. So if we can market to those customers for those existing businesses and territories where we currently have franchisees, that's a big advantage, right? Compared to doing it on your own or maybe some other smaller pest control brands.
Mm,
In addition to that, the biggest thing that a lot of people don't know about is that we have internal businesses that Authority Brands owns that help with the purchasing process. So we have a company called Bimax that we own. It's our internal purchasing arm. And why is that important? Well, we're using our collective bargaining of having 1,200 plus owners across those 15 brands that we can go to vendors and go, hey, give us a better price, right? We have 1,200 owners that all want fleet vehicles, right? They need trucks, they
mm,
need vans, need insurance for their business. And by the way, not just insurance for their business, a big reason that maybe some folks may not move forward with a franchise is the fact that where they're working now, they got benefits, they got medical insurance. They don't want to give that up. So when they come over to us, our Bimax buying power is going to help them get the best price on that medical insurance for themselves and their family, but also for their employees. So
mm.
that's a big advantage, right? We can use that their size and strength to negotiate with vendors to get you the best price and ultimately get you more money to your bottom line.
Right, great, great. So, what kind of training and support does Mosquito Squad provide to the franchisees, especially to those new to the industry?
So none of our owners ever, from the beginning of time today, ever came from the pest control industry, right? So any candidates that you send my way are not going to be unique in that respect, right? So we're used to that. The training begins before you even set foot at our in-person training in Macon, Georgia, which is where our headquarters is. We have an at-home 2-week virtual self-paced training. And the reason we do this is because when you come and spend a week with us in Macon, Georgia, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the business. And so at home, we want you learning the basics, kind of the entry level study of entomology, which is a fancy word for the study of insects, to kind of get to understand all the facets of the business at a very high level. So that when
Mm,
you do come spend a week with us, you kind of know all the main words and information that you'll need to know to kind of take that deeper dive. Once that initial training ends, you get assigned someone called a business advisor. So who are these people? Well, these are our existing owners that perform at the highest level because we think who better to give advice to our new owners than existing ones that have a track record of success. So they're going to be email, phone call, text away to help them with whatever they need as part of the onboarding process and continuing as long as they're an owner. They're also regional. So they're going to understand their regional competition, right? Pricing, pests, things like that, to kind of help them make decisions for the business. In addition to just being available whenever they need them, they're going to have two scheduled things. They're going to have a regularly scheduled on every month business review call. So what is that? Well, that's where we open up your KPI and your P&L data for your business every single month. And we know from month one to maturity where you're supposed to be along the way because we do this for 20 years. So we know where you're supposed to be tracking. We want to make sure that's happening. Their success is our success. So we meet every month to kind of make sure that they're hitting those marks. And if they're not, good thing we meet every month, right? Because if something we see something that's like kind of out of the ordinary, we can identify that, pivot, get you moving in the right direction before small problem becomes a big one. And then lastly, in addition to that, they're going to come out and visit our owners every single year. And the reason we do that is because the KPI and P&L data is great, but it's just black and white data. It doesn't tell the whole story. We got to get little boots on the ground just to kind of make sure that things are working as efficiently as they possibly can. Great example is maybe your technicians are spending a half an hour to do something they can do in 10 or 15 minutes, and we can kind of train them on that. That's going to create more opportunity for your business. So lots of touch, lots of communication, lots of support. There's additional meetings and things that we do beyond that, but that's kind of the main training that's involved with this business.
Yeah, and I like that we touched on a few things actually. The first thing being that you don't have to be from the industry. Like as you
Right.
said, most majority of people that's coming to you are not in the industry, and that is a common misconception when it comes to businesses and franchises. Right? I get that
Right.
all the time.
Yep.
Also, you touched on some of the key things about owning a franchise is the level of support that you're getting in different areas. That is going to be very, very important that you're not going to get just starting up from scratch. So I like that you touched on some of those aspects as well.
Absolutely.
What does a typical day in the life of a Mosquito Squad franchisee look like, especially
Yeah.
during peak season?
So, there's two types of owners that we have in our system, really, and there's some hybrids too, but the main two are what's called an owner operator, which is full time in the business.
Hmm.
And by the way, our owners are not going out and spraying people's properties, right? We're hiring technicians to do that.
Right.
Day in the life of an owner operator is more like hiring and firing those people, right? Managing that team, dealing with vendors, high level, not really marketing because your marketing is all handled by us, and we can talk about that too if you like. So really, the only thing they're really focusing on is driving that business based on data.
Hmm.
That we talked about, using all the software and KPI data that we have to kind of drive that business, utilizing the services like our support partners, business advisors. They're going to help them drive that business, making sure they're following the processes and procedures to ensure success.
Hmm.
So dealing with customers, just day in day, uh, things like that. The other type of owner we have is called semi-absentee, and that's basically the GM model. You're hiring a guy or gal to do all those things I just described on your behalf. An easy way to kind of understand it, like day in the life wise, is owner operator 40 plus hours a week, semi absentee owner maybe 10, right? So that's really the difference. I always like to say that if you are going to come in as semi absentee, so the GM model, be prepared with a little more capital because you're going to have
Yeah,
to pay that guy or gal to do that for you. And in addition to that, your bottom line is not going to be as healthy as maybe an owner operator because you've got that salary built into there, right? That you're going to have to pay
exactly.
every single month.
Exactly. Thank you for that. I mean, it transitioned perfectly into my next question, actually. And I'm glad that you kind of went into those nuances about the different types of ownership. So, what type of owners do best in this business? And is this ideal for hands on operators or the semi absentees that you spoke about, or both?
Yeah. So when you look at our like top 10 owners in the system on a surface level, doesn't seem to matter. Owner operator semi absentee is probably 50-50 of those blends. But there's one thing to consider. This business, at some point, whether you come in at semi absentee or owner operator, is going to move to more of a semi absentee model because if you think about it, once you learn the business and your technicians are on their routes, and the way this business works is that your technicians have their routes that's done through software. You don't have to put their routes together or anything like that. Um, and then new technicians that come in, they're going to be trained by your existing technicians. So you don't have to handle training. You don't have to handle running your team from day to day because they know where they're supposed to be. Really high, all your marketing is handled by us. So at some point, you're going to become semi-absentee, even if you started as owner operator,
Mm,
because it's just a natural progression. So you have the freedom to be, less, in the business and more high level on the business, right? We're always going to be transitioning to that. So, like I said, when you look at our top owners, it doesn't seem to matter high level what type of owner they're in. Again, the difference is going to be that EBITDA line, right? How much they're taking home.
mhm,
That's the difference.
right. That's right. So since this can be considered a seasonal business, how do franchisees maximize revenue year round?
So we talked about a little bit earlier that back when we first started this brand, that was it could be considered an issue that bound by the seasonality of the mosquito that would kind of basically stop it. And so again, we've adapted and evolved to kind of eliminate that issue. So even our more northern climates like Minnesota and upstate New York, they're still functioning basically year round because of these additional lines of revenue. There's one thing though that's it's kind of funny. Some of our old school owners, so 10 plus years old in the franchise, were used to that model where they basically would take off from about Thanksgiving till like mid-February. And so they kind of liked it actually. They kind of like having the time off. They'd make all their money during the season and just kind of shut their doors and relax for about 2, 3 months. So some of those owners still like to do that. You have the bandwidth and the ability to do those things as an owner, but obviously, most of our owners want the opportunity to earn as much as they can year round. So that's typically what we see.
So I heard you touch on marketing a little bit earlier. What type of or what kind of marketing support does Mosquito Squad provide to help franchisees generate leads and grow their business?
Yeah, 100% in-house marketing lead generation for all of our owners. So they don't have to be some kind of marketing guru. We're going to handle all that for them. We're going to drive ultimately to be hyper reductive about it. We're going to get the phone to ring, right? Get people to call
Mhm,
them. That's the name of the game. And so 80% of it is digital. So meaning what you would expect, SEO, pay-per-click, Google ads, et cetera, to get you to the top of search and ultimately, like I said, get that phone to ring. The other 20% is going to be print. So the
mhm,
old school stuff like door hangers, yard signs, direct mail pieces. And that stuff still works for us because we're a home service business. We're getting in that on that door and in that mailbox, particularly strategically for like gated communities, our HOA areas where they don't allow, solicitation. You can't do the door hanging. So, but they can't stop us from getting in the mailbox. So we get in that mailbox, and once you get that first customer, it just kind of snowballs because you're coming on that property every single month to treat for those services, and two ancillary effects happen. One is all of our vehicles are wrapped from head to toe with bright green colors, and the guy on the side, his name is Dread Skeeter. That's our mascot on the side. You can't help but see us every single month. So people are going to notice you. They're going to jot that number down. In addition to that, when you go and spray somebody's property and get rid of pests, well, they start to run from the property, and guess where they go? The neighbor's property, right? So it just kind of happens naturally, right? They're going to call you because they're going to start, pests are not selective. If they're in one yard, they're probably in the neighbor's yard. And lastly, what happens is referrals. You get to know
mhm,
that customer, they get to know you. They're going to tell their neighbors about you. They're going to tell their friends and family about you. So once we get our kind of foot in the door, so to speak, with that direct mail piece in those gated communities, we start to see additional customers start to pile on over time. So that's what we do with the direct mail. We don't just blanket an area. We're very strategic. We can do direct mail down to the mail carrier's route. So we can make sure we're picking just those areas that we can't get through on foot, right? So
mhm.
we handle all that for them, and we do really good at it. Again, we're a data company that does pest control. We have a 51% close rate. So what does that mean? Every other call we send you is a customer. They're going to sign.
Mhm.
So really, really strong performance.
That's important. So I felt like we did kind of touch on some of the misconceptions that people may have about the industry itself. Are there any other, or what would you feel is the biggest misconception that people have in running a mosquito control business per se, and how do you address them?
Yeah. So one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear often is that anybody can do this. Someone can just get a pickup truck and buy some chemicals and spray it. And so there's some radical differences in the way that we do business compared to other pest control companies, even people that are doing things on the higher level.
Mhm.
There's licensure required with this business. Again, some of these fly-by-night companies may not have those things. So a lot of homeowners are a little more skeptical and a little more educated about who they hire. Right? They're going to go see. They're going to look you up on Google, see your ratings. Right? So all the reputation is important nowadays. Like a great example I always like to give is back when before all that internet existed, and I'm old enough to maybe you're not, but I'm old enough to remember that when you go to buy a car, you were kind of at a disadvantage, right? That salesman knew more about that car than you'll ever know. But nowadays, guess what?
Mhm.
The consumer's just as educated or maybe even more on the vehicle.
Mm.
They can look all that stuff up, look the ratings up, look the performance up, everything they need to know before they even set foot in that dealership. So same with pest control. These consumers are going and making sure that we have high ratings, that we do things the right way. And so some things that we do to increase that is the way that we service homeowners. So we have proprietary products that we only have access to, that we've
Mm.
invented, and they're natural organic pest control products, meaning they're made from flower material. They're not synthetic products like you would get off the shelf. um,
Okay.
a lot of the things that we do is education of the consumer, because a lot of customers go and they hear, okay, it's made from flowers, it's pretty and smells nice, and but does it kill bugs, right? Like today, that's what I need done, right? So we have what's called a satisfaction guarantee. So what does that mean? That means if we don't get back we don't kill that insect the first time we come on that property, we're coming back for free at no additional cost to you. And so we track that because that costs us money, right? We don't want that to happen. We call it a return rate. It's less than 1%. So meaning
Wow.
9% of the time we get it right the first time. So that we educate the consumer. We say, hey, these natural products absolutely work. Trust us, but we're going to put our money where our mouth is. If we don't get it right, if it doesn't kill the pests you're looking to eliminate, we will come back for free. And so that usually is the game changer, and it gets us that customer. And so that's great just for every customer because it's a lot safer for your pets and for your toddler. Once this stuff dries on plant material, it's safe to the touch. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's made from flowers. Um, and then also for those more, eco-friendly consumers that want to use natural green products, that's important to them. And then lastly, in that same vein, everything's about training for our technicians. So again, these fly-by-night companies, they don't necessarily know how to. They just grab something off the shelf, maybe the most nuclear stuff they can find that will kill anything, and just spray the heck out of your whole yard. Right? That's not the right way to do it. Uh,
Mm.
we want to be conscious of our pollinators, right? Bees and things like that help plants grow and flowers, right? So it's really quite simple. And again, a lot of these fly-by-night smaller pest control companies don't do it. Just don't spray the flower. Just spray the leaf material. That's where the bee goes, right? They're not landing on the leaf; they're landing on the flower, on the stamen. So
Mm.
as long as we train our technicians to spray that, it's better for the environment. So we talk about all those things, and it's just some of the differentiators on a pest control level. If you want to talk about differentiators compared to other mosquito brands, of which we know there's a lot of them, I love to talk about those too.
Okay. So as we wrap up, for those who are curious about this brand or just in franchising in general, what should they consider before reaching out to explore this opportunity with me? Because people are going to see this. People are they have access to my website, which provides them my franchise fit form, where they can actually rate their level of interest and things of that nature. But what can you say to that?
Yeah, high level, this is the main things that you need to absolutely know about this business. Number one, we're first to market. We created the model. No one has more experience and understanding of this category than us, right? It's just a fact, right? We've been doing this for 20 plus years.
Mm.
Um, Territories, gigantic, 500,000 people. So when you buy a territory from us, you're getting 500,000 potential customers in that territory. Excuse me. Additional to that, kind of bearing the lead, no royalties for the first year. So you are not paying one red cent to us for support for the first 12 months. And why do we do that? We know it's a competitive space, right? We can't control your costs as far as employees and fuel and chemicals, but we do control the royalty. So we remove that from the equation. to ensure success, right? We want to make sure you have every possibility to succeed with this business. And by the way, if you look at our item 20, which talks about our owners that have exited and added to the system over time in 20 years in business, it's less than 2% failure rate. So really strong performance across this long time we've been in business. We also, in our item 7, include 1 year's worth of working capital. Why is this important? Well, typically in franchising, when you go to buy a business, you look at it's called item 7, which is the section that talks about what the investment is, what it includes. They usually include about 3 months worth of working capital, which is kind of disingenuous, right? You're going to burn through that really quick, and then you're kind of pulling out of your own pocket. So
Mhm.
you put a full year's in. If you use it all, great. That's what it's there for. But most aren't going to need that, right? But we just want you to be over prepared rather than under prepared.
Mhm.
We talked about that we're full service. There's a section in our FDD that's called the item 19 that talks about performance across the system. Our our average franchisee does $500,000 in top line revenue per territory, and most of our owners have more than one, and they're bringing down 30% EBITDA. Really strong EBITDA numbers because there's not a lot of overhead with this business. There's no build out, construction, landlord, utilities, right? It's not a brick and mortar. There's no, basically it's just a guy, a pickup truck, and some chemicals. That's pretty much the business. And so that keeps your costs down. So basically per million, because most of our owners have 2 territories, they're bringing down 300K to their pocket every single year. And that's on average. Our top
Mhm.
25% are bringing 1.1 per territory at around 30% EBITDA. So really strong performance. These things do make a lot of money without a lot of overhead and a low investment. Our investment starts at less than $200,000. And so it's easy to get into, easy to learn. Again, none of our owners came from this space. We are full service, as I mentioned, it allows us to be basically year round in most markets. And then we talked about the conversion rate, 50%. Every other customer we're sending you is going to become your customer. And we have a 70 to 80% retention rate, meaning those customers that you bring on
They
every year
stay.
when you renew, 7 to 8 out of 10 are going to say, yep, renew me. And you're going to have, and we don't live in a vacuum. There's a compound annual growth rate that happens. So those existing ones are going to renew, but you're going to have new ones coming in behind them. They're going to be doing the same thing. So lots of potential to scale and to earn in this business. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I love the brand. I just came from the owners conference. Everybody's psyched about the future of this brand. We have 95% turnout to our owners conferences because
Okay.
they love the brand so much.
Amazing information. Jason, I would like to thank you so much for coming here on Franchise Vibes. And again, this is the reason why I do this because I learn as well. There's going to be certain things that even surprise me. I think one of the top things would be the royalties.
Yeah,
I think that that's a phenomenal advantage and something that does set you apart. So this is why I bring this type of information to my audience because again, when you think of franchises, most times you're thinking in one industry, 1 or 2 industries, and don't realize there's so many other industries. And there's pests who, when you think of pests, you're like, oh no, why would I want to? But it's like when you hear the type of information and the type of success,
right.
that you can have, you might want to consider it. So, guys, if this is something that you haven't thought about, but now it piques your interest, make sure you do reach out precisionfranchise.com so that I can get you set up and we can speak to Jason and we'll take you through this process together. But again, Jason, phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Thank you for having me, Tamika. I appreciate it.
Until the next time, guys. Thank you.